Redditors who have had no friends for a period in your life, how did you find a new group to fit into? Moving to new locations for work does this, and mostly it's about saying yes. Stay open-minded and take every invite to hang with people. Generally, if you get along well, the invites keep coming. If they don't sweat it. As others have said, initiating conversation is a start. And if you have a group talking, then there's nothing wrong with wanna grab a beer, coffee, appropriate beverage after this. Pick one though. If you quote the forward slashes, chances are the answer will be no. I had 0 friends at the age of 25. I remember this distinct feeling after a pretty good date with someone from OkCupid that if I were to suddenly be married, I would have 0 people, aside from mother, brother and sister, to be at my wedding. I'd have no bridesmaids, no friends there with me, and I'd never felt so depressed in my life at the thought. I had a Tumblr account, where I just reblogged fanatists of fandoms I'm in, cute gifs, etc. When someone I randomly followed made a post saying she was selling commissions because she was going to a very niche fandom convention in Seattle, and she wanted funding to go to it. Holy crap. I lived in Seattle. I messaged her, asking for the details of this convention. She sent me back a link, and I decided to volunteer to be on the staff committee for planning. I went to the cafe a few weeks later after being invited by their volunteer coordinator. I walked into a room of 30+ people who all knew each other and just about turned around and walked away when someone smiled and waved me over to come sit with them. She introduced herself, I introduced myself, and after the meeting as she was leaving I just had this do it moment and walked up to her and asked, literally, "You seem really cool. Do you want to be friends?" She smiled and was like, "Sure, here's my number." From there, we texted, and she invited me to meet a friend of hers, and from that friend, 2 more came into the fold. We started with gaming, movies. During the convention I was helping plan, which was the most fun I'd had in years. Being around people who liked me and I liked being with instead of pacing the dealer's hall as I was usually used to doing alone. Anyways, that was around 4 years ago, and since then my group has grown, but we've all stayed together. Not a month goes by where we don't all do something. Traveling out of the state, going to bookstores, museums, movies, dinners, lunches, doing our birthdays together, etc. It's just been amazing. And it really was because I just thought volunteering would be cool and I asked the most insecure question ever, but everything turned out better than expected. I got a job. So when I was a freshman in high school, my parents declared bankruptcy and had to move into a more rural area of Tucson, 50 minutes to an hour away from the 3 or 4 friends I actually had. My brother went to the same high school and could drive, but like a month before we lost our house he got expelled from the district and had to go to an alternative high school, like a crappy charter school for teen moms and drug addicts. So my choices were, go to a brand new high school on the bus, or go to the alternative high school with my brother. The alternative high school was for 4 hours a day, no homework, no school on Fridays. I went with my brother. There were about 20 kids in the high school, and they all hated me. They thought I was pretentious and gay and weird. I was the only one there that was there by choice. The only one who hadn't been forced to go there, but chose to. I should have taken the bus to the public school. I still regret it 10 years later. I lived an hour from the friends I had. I couldn't drive. My parents were alcoholics, so they would never drive me. My friends all hung out together and had a blast without me, and I felt as if they weren't even making an attempt to see me. I got swallowed up by a pit of depression and loneliness. I had no one to talk to. No one. It was the worst time in my life. I didn't think I was going to make it. I could never do it again. Anyway, my depression lasted for a long time. But eventually my mom told me that I couldn't just sit around and play WoW all day anymore, and she made me get an application for this tiny family-owned pizza place in our crappy rural community. I got an interview, and they hired me on the spot. $5.15 an hour. I was 15 years old then. That job saved my freaking life. I made friends there. Great friends. Still my best friends to this day. They introduced me to their friends, and I finally felt social contact again. The owner was like the mom I always wanted. Her sons, the 2 managers, are my best friends. One was the best man at my wedding. I fell in love for the first time at that pizza place. Like I said earlier, that job saved my life. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me, and the pizza wasn't even that good. I had to wear an eye patch in elementary school and, long story short, I didn't have any friends all the way to high school. One day, when my sophomore year was just starting, I went into my English class and sat down. One of the cool kids was sitting behind me. His name was Jeremy and he was popular, athletic, etc. One of those people that typically picked on me. For some reason he tapped me on the shoulder and, when I turned around, asked me if I wanted to join the swimming team. I was never really into sports, partly due to poor depth perception and partly due to being scrawny and out of shape. I figured there weren't any bulls in swimming, not until the showers anyway, so I decided to give it a shot. The next day I came in with a pair of swimming trunks and some goggles and went to the pool after school. I wasn't sure if it was some sort of prank or something, but sure enough, there was a swim practice and everybody was pretty welcoming. It was pretty tough, but I decided to go back the next day. After a few weeks, I decided to join up for real and had my parents pay the fee and sign all of the paperwork. Made a lot of new friends, got into decent shape, and became somewhat popular. Turns out I was a pretty good swimmer and it became one of my favorite things to do. I was never sure why he decided to talk to me of all people, but it was a real life changer for me. It was probably one of the first times somebody was legitimately nice to me for no reason. So, I made a bunch of friends by joining in on a group activity. Shared goals brings people closer together. If you want to make friends, join a team. I caught onto a huge secret. My former group of friends were all desperately jealous of the preppy kids. They did everything they could to dress and act like them. Then I eavesdropped on the preppy kids talking, and they were calling my former group of friends the stuck-up preppy girls. At that moment I realized, everyone around you is just trying to be like someone else. That meant, none of it even mattered. Completely freed me to talk to whoever the heck I wanted, which led to friendships in every strata of high school populations. I've never forgotten either, and it helps to remind myself of that when I'm feeling like I'm not good enough or being secretly judged. Cool, just don't try this in prison. Work. I'm inherently antisocial, so work friends are perfect. During the day I have to be social regardless, so it may as well be with people I enjoy the company of. However, I don't have to feel pressure to see them all the time outside of that, so I can enjoy my time to myself and do what feels right. Nobody finds it weird if you don't speak to them regularly outside of work if you see them every day anyway. Make friends with one extrovert. They will invite you out all the time and introduce you to all their friends. Done this twice in my adult life so far, actually more like it just happened and then I noticed a pattern. When I needed to make new single friends, I basically WD myself out to meetup groups, sports leagues, book clubs, running groups, trivia nights and just about everything else. There were times where fitting in was instantaneous, but others where hanging out with the group felt awkward and boring. The best people I met were from the running groups, and the worst were from the generic social meetup groups. This is so true, especially about the awkward and boring part. I have had a good amount of friends in my life, but only maybe 10% of them did not give me the awkward and boring feeling. Quantity. When I basically swore off all of my friends to help me get over drug addiction, I went through a period where I didn't have friends at all. I would occasionally hang out with people from work, but I always felt like I didn't belong. One day, I ran into a childhood friend, and we ended up hanging out with a few of his friends. 10 years later, I am still sober and I have a great group of friends who feel like family, all thanks to one random encounter with a childhood friend. One of the hardest times to make friends is when you stop hanging out with all your friends that you just got high with. Then you come to the realization you have nobody to hang out with anymore. It's tough. Left Islam at the age of 26. Lost all my friends. Still have no real friends. Everyone I communicate with outside of work is an online virtual person. I play a lot of Xbox and my social network is almost totally online. Sometimes I think that these are the most pure relationships, as there is no other motive than to play a game and have fun. I do miss physical contact though. I think this applies to me. After high school I went through a period of depression where I absolutely alienated everyone. I lost a lot of my friends and kept falling deeper into an abyss. When I decided to make my life better, I found that people flocked to me. When I began to love and respect myself, so did others. I was a military brat and moved every 3 years in pre-Facebook time, so I spent a lot of my time as a child as the new kid. Never really had many friends until high school. Finished high school and moved again, not really had any solid friends since. A few good friends that I met back then online. Met one really good friend through WoW but he died. Now I just play WoW with people that are cool enough but not many I'd consider friends. Mostly I just pretend I'm fine with it. Military brat here too. Army. The military touts all these studies about how resilient and resourceful dependent kids are, but they leave out the part about how shallow and superficial they are in terms of maintaining relationships. Moved away from my hometown to go to college and my roommate had yet to move in, although we didn't really know each other anyway. So I got my sad sack self out of bed after crying most of the night, mostly about being separated from my dogs and over my sister having a come apart in the lobby the day before, and walked my butt over to the LGBT resource center on campus. Immediately met some gays and had never felt more at home in my life. I grew up in a little East Texas town and I didn't know any other gay people except for the bisexual girl I dated. It was awesome to find that crew so quick. I've been so happy to find a group of trans people on my campus. Almost all of my high school friends have stopped talking to me, probably because I'm a whiny bee. IDK. So I'd been left with a few work friends and one guy who got super racist. It's so nice to have friends who not only understand what you're going through but don't treat it like the elephant in the room. Still in the no friend zone. I dropped my friends group as it was a completely toxic bunch of relationships and I was tired of feeling like crap. I guess it's made me wary of people and their intentions and has made me put up a ton of walls. For now I just have my family and my partner, but to be honest I feel like a loser. It's got to the point I think I'm putting too much pressure of my partner to be my everything and I'm not sure of how to get out of this hole. I'm just not equipped to be social or make that leap from casual acquaintance to fully fledged friends. Started D&D at a local game store. Was totally repelled by the idea at first because of how creepy most nerdy guys acted towards me in college. Found out 90% of them aren't creepy, just huge nerds. It's fun. Applauds to you for allowing a few fellas to redeem themselves and for you to feel accepted and has thought it is fun to be a part of our fairly misrepresented community. I did things that were quirky enough to be enticing, but not too quirky to be weird. Here I go exemplin again. During my spare period, I sat at a table alone in the library making paper cranes. Not terribly quirky, but I got good. Really good. Like, made one in 30 seconds. Or a minute without looking. I would string them up at the end of the period and hang them in my locker. People were interested and would talk to me about it. Eventually, one person talked to me, and one of their friends came with them. Next day they came back. Another friend tagged along, and while I did my thing they did theirs. So basically I just shared my table with their friend group, until I kinda just became a part of it. TLDR. Be love birds. Being nice for really no reason is a good way to get people to like you. Read above first. Person comes by all why you got all them birds in your locker. I be like no reason really. They say can I have one and so I give them a full string. 60. This became a common thing. People coming to my locker, getting some cranes for their locker, and slowly, a large portion of the lockers near mine had my cranes in them. Not necessarily friend group, but it does get you some acquaintances which opens up options. TLDR. Dang. Everybody loves birds. Stand out. First year of high school, Halloween comes along. Wear your costumes folks. So I was a top hat. Like, full body top hat. From head to knees. I didn't go to any classes that day, was very outgoing. I am a very loner-esque person, but nobody will know it's me. So I went all out, talking to people, playing music loudly and starting dance circles, running into classes, dropping candy, and itching. General hooliganism. Word slowly spread that it was me over the next weeks, and although I wouldn't admit it for the sake of not wanting to be punished for everything I did, but people knew for sure. TLDR. Be and butthole. People love that. TLDR. The TL. Drs be nice to everyone, and eventually you'll be a part of a friend group that fits you. Didn't. It's okay. I was painfully lonely for years and then I started to prefer it after a while and now I hate people. That's why I love Reddit. People are kind of annoying tbh. Didn't. I did not have any friends until the 5th grade and currently have not had a legitimate one since I graduated from high school 2 years ago. Graduated in 1979. Same boat. Join the gym. Most people have the same goal, lose weight, gain muscle, so I'm more than happy to share wisdom and before you know it, you are training with them and socializing. Also, it is less daunting because it is not as much of a forced situation. Plus you get fitter and healthier while doing it. I always get the impression that everyone at the gym doesn't want to be bothered. Everyone is plugged in, not looking at anyone, and keeping to themselves. I moved. Lived in Charlotte from 2001 to 2003. Got a job near a friend who moved there after college, but he and his wife moved home a year after I got down there and I broke up with my girlfriend. I was utterly alone for like a year. Around the holidays in 03 I was incredibly depressed so I got a job near where all my college friends in Western NY still lived and I moved back there. Been in the area since. Went to medical school. Had absolutely zero friends. Everything was competitive. Everyone was always studying and nobody wanted to study with me apparently. One day, I had a knock on the door and 2 girls my age in almost identical skirts were smiling at me and gave me a flyer. Mormons are seriously the friendliest people ever. Went to the church, got baptized, the whole shebang. Made a lot of friends just because everyone talks to you and just loves everything. And I love to hang out with the female missionaries and help them with home visits. I don't really go to the church anymore, but I'm still friends with quite a few LDS members. While I might not agree with everything the church stands for, those smiling members got me through some really rough times. That fellowshipping. Just before I started uni, my dad died. I fell into a pit of depression and got heavily into sleeping around, drinking, and pretty heavy BDSM. When I started uni, I met one friend in my halls, but he was hardly ever around. Uni was excruciating. I was just coming off meds, but hardly came in due to the crippling depression and need to feel some form of love. I somehow got my boyfriend, OKC, and thus started my healing process. We're still together. Partway through my 2nd year, I was working on 2 projects with this guy. We were doing the same roles on the opposite projects, and these roles had to work closely with each other. I was surprised when, after the 2nd time we met to work on our projects, he asked, "So what shall we do for lunch?" I was surprised that someone wanted to hang out outside of uni work because usually I'd just been ditched or awkwardly tagged along. He started wanting to go everywhere around uni with me. I became friends with his group, and now we work on everything together, and we all talk daily. So I went from crippling social anxiety and depression to being someone with reliable and caring, and funny, friends. I've never had many friends, but about 8 years ago one of my best friends, who was apparently the glue that held our circle of friends together, moved 10 hours away. I'm still trying to figure out how to be a 38-year-old guy and make new friends. At least I got my wife, who is my best friend. I spent the first 7 years of my life in China, then immigrated to Singapore with my parents and stayed there for 7 years. At 14, we immigrated to Canada, a combination of hardcore Asian parenting and their unhappy marriage, and later, divorce after many years together, more or less ruined my childhood and teenage years. So for the first 18 years of my life I really didn't have friends, and if people were willing to accept me and made an effort to bond with me, I had no idea how to reciprocate. At 19, I had depression which I had to deal with for the next 8 or so years. Now, with the background out of the way, I made friends along the way, not by trying to fit into groups. I tried, didn't work, but by building one-on-one connections. All the people I count as close friends now were either serious upper year students in my program or PhD students in my department. Whenever we catch up, It's usually in small gatherings of around 4 people max, and what brought us together in the first place was that we had the same attitude towards life. Namely that we loved the subjects we studied and were willing to put in whatever hard work necessary to become better at what we did. Apart from that, the actual logistics of finding and approaching those people, well, you just gotta take a chance sometimes and give people a free pass. I approached a lot of people and helped them out with things. Basically demonstrated sincerity in becoming their friend. Those who took that to mean I'm a doormat are no longer in my life, and those who reciprocated are the ones I'm close friends with. It's been pointed out that I'm a bit odd. I often talk to myself, make jokes around people that aren't entirely appropriate, and apparently there have been a few times when it's been pointed out that I need to answer the door wearing more than my underwear. Okay, I actually got out of bed and on my PC in order to type this right here. I used to be a loner for nearly my entire school life. Let's just say there were reasons that caused me to detach from my classmates. Starting in grade 4-5, I was cold, condescending, and all around an unpleasant person to be around. This culminated in me becoming the most hated person at school. Literally. Some years go by and this really gets to me. I just wanted to be accepted and not seen with this bias of being absolutely unlikable. It was hard getting back on track, but what I did was opening up to one person, a girl I hadn't had all that much to do with before. She was just an all-around nice person, non-biased. We texted for a bit, which led to her realizing I wasn't all that bad of a guy, just extremely misunderstood. This spread around, and over the course of several years I got back to neutral ground with most of my classmates. Now, I wasn't liked, I was tolerated. I full well realized that. I was able to establish a peer group of really close friends at around grade 10, some of which I knew since the first year of primary. I really don't know where I would be today had I not come around in the past. I still find it hard to fully trust people, but at least I have no problems finding acquaintances now. Sorry for the ramble. I moved to a city where I knew no one. Flash forward and a tornado hits my neighborhood. Damaged, destroyed dozens of homes. Nothing brings people together like mutual misery. 1/10. Would not recommend. That period made me stronger, and while I'm still insecure, let me become more comfortable with being alone, and that, added with time, let me find increasingly better friends. Right now, 3 years since then, I've had the best kind of friends I've ever had in my entire life. Whether or not they remain that way doesn't matter. I'm glad to have even gotten here. I didn't have a real friend until freshman year of high school. I went to a Lutheran school up until 3rd grade. Then I got put into a public school. I guess I never made the transition socially. I got bullied a lot and pretty much just kept to myself. Never went to birthday parties, or had people to invite to mine. Never did a sleepover thing. I was just that loner kid. Ended up with a decent group of friends in high school. We were always together. Similar interests. Then I left that school due to personal issues and lost contact with every single person. What great friends. Anyways, I was used to the no friends life, so it didn't bother me. Then I got to college at 1920. 2-year program just to get my foot in the door somewhere. This is where I met my true friends. We all make an effort to keep in contact, even though it may not be as often as we like. One of the guys and I got to be such good friends that he stood up in my wedding. Currently I'm 25, and finally have a decent sized friend pool, some closer than others, but we all generally care about each other and it's not a forced friendship. After high school my small group of friends scattered to the winds, and the person I thought was my best friend was no friend at all. For a few years I had some okay friends at work, then I quit and had no friends again. Got a new job, made a crap ton of friends, some that I have now 10 years later. I don't have many friends, but I have a small group of good friends. I personally think that's better. I realized I wasn't fostering any friendships. I didn't go when invited places. I told myself I wasn't going to have fun when I did go and therefore did not have fun, etc etc. Eventually, no one ever asked me to go anywhere. I would go months without anyone calling me, coming over, or even asking me general how are you questions over social media. I was depressed. Eventually I realized it was a self-made prophecy, and thankfully I had new people in college that were trying to be friendly with me that had originally annoyed the crap out of me. I decided to agree to go to the places I was invited to by this person and try and enjoy myself. Turns out I do have friends now, and yes, they are a totally different set of friends than before. In fact, that person from college is now my best friend, and has been for years. I had to stop blaming everyone else and start placing the blame where it really belonged, myself. I have no friends now. I have been hurt by people a lot, and now I stopped trying to be friendly and became withdrawn from normal social practices. People aren't worth my dang time. Humans need social contact. You can't claim that all people aren't worth your time. Through my brother and old friends, after not going outside for I think 2 years and not following the norm for 6, I was pretty out of touch. It has been quite scary. I've gone through a couple friend purges. Didn't drop my friends completely, just noticed a shift in the paradigm of our relationship, growing in new directions, changes in maturity, etc., and grew apart as I needed people who would fulfill my needs, like intellectual conversions and responsibility. As someone who can be very social but generally detests it, nothing beats a Friday night in sweatpants, my PC, and a new blockbuster game. I've had to work on putting myself in more social situations. The easiest method is add new activities in your life that force you to interact with other humans. And I don't just mean the typical locals like bars and clubs. Here are a few good examples. Grocery store, hike or running, gym. Do you have a hobby? Join a club of it. Volunteer. These are just a few, but if you incorporate them into your life you will be well on your way to making a few friends. Throughout 4th 10th grade, I had literally nobody to talk to, including my parents. Dad hated me, mom was busy taking care of my newborn brother, and even Tolly started leaving me alone after she broke up with my dad. Nobody at any of the 3 schools I went to during that period of time ever wanted to talk to me. I guess it's partially my fault, as I pretty much ended any relationships I had with anyone once my parents broke up. However, once I tried to make some new friends, around 6th grade, nobody really liked me. What confused me more was that at this time, I had switched to a new school, so nobody knew anything about me, but for some reason everyone there essentially hated me from day 1 until the end of the school year. I switched out of that school by grade 7, and at that point it was like I wasn't even there. People never bullied me, but they never noticed me either. I would go to school, work, stand in a corner for recess break, go back to working, and come home. Repeat for 3 years. Mainly due to all of this, I lost all sense of joy and never really showed emotion. Still struggle with it to this day. However, in 10th grade math class, I didn't know where to sit on the first day, so I decided to switch things up, and instead of sitting by myself, I sat in a group with 4 other students who were friends with each other. To my surprise, they were actually interested in me. They started talking to me and eventually asked me if I wanted to go over to their house after school to hang out. I thought this was all some kind of joke, as nobody had ever done anything like this to me in years. However, I felt that I had nothing to lose, so I tagged along. Turns out, it wasn't a joke, and they actually wanted me there and enjoyed my presence. Apparently they thought I was fun, despite my lack of emotion, dark humor, and deadpan voice. It all got better from there. People started noticing me, and I made more friends from there. TLDR. Parents broke up, shut everyone off in 4th grade, was the modern equivalent of a Jew in 1942 Germany in 6th grade, and was essentially non-existent throughout 7th 10th grade. Said frick it and threw myself at a group, and they surprisingly enjoyed my presence. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.